Jaguars free agency predictions. Let's get it. Now, before we get into this video, I do want to give a big shout out to this video sponsor. Now, are you guys tired of constantly receiving spam calls to your phone to the point where you don't really answer anymore? Now, I am lucky because I live in a 407 area code and my cell phone goes back to the 904. But I haven't lived in Jacksonville in over 10 years. And you guys won't believe the amount of 904 calls that I get every day. And look, if I get a 904 call, I haven't lived in Jacksonville in over 10 years. I know that it's a spam call, and it's crazy the amount of calls I get every single day from the 904 area code. Guys, data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you, just like where you live. Now, Aura, who is the sponsor of this video, can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Now, brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do it. So you guys can let Aura do that all for you. Aura also does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't see. It's really easy to set up, so you don't have to go out and download a bunch of different apps to get things like parental control, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and all that stuff. Like, you get everything at one affordable price. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off of your private information online, or you can hit the link in the top of my description box. It's going to bring you to Aura, and that link is going to give you a 14-day free trial. Huge shout out to Aura for coming over to my channel and allowing me to give this to my subscribers to keep them safe online. And with all that said, let's get into the contents of this video. It is currently Monday, March 4th, and I'll tell you what, there's a very good chance that this video will age poorly, and age poorly very, very quickly, because it's a very, very eventful week for the NFL and also the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, March 5th, which is tomorrow, is the franchise tag deadline. The Jaguars have a lot going on with the franchise tag, which we will discuss a little bit later. Also, March 11, so a week from today, is when the negotiating period actually begins in the NFL. So that's when you're going to get all your different leaks that, you know, this guy is going to sign a deal with that team, and this team, this guy's doing this with that team. And then, you know, March 13th is a day where it becomes official. You know what I mean? Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport will be tweeting on Monday, and then the actual official Instagram, Twitter accounts will actually be posting the legit stuff that we have signed this guy, and throw in the jersey swap and all the different things that we do these days for engagement, and boom, bada bing. It's a pretty fun week, honestly, seeing where these different players are going. You know, especially there seems to be a lot of star power potentially on the move. So all that is coming up for you guys. And today's video, we are going to do a free agency prediction video. And this isn't just saying that I predict the Jaguars will go out there and sign this guy. This is more of just an overall landscape of how do I think the Jaguars will attack this free agency? You know, what will they do with the franchise tag? You know, how are they going to build the team? Where are they going to trim some stuff? Like what positions might they spend money at? You know, those are some of the different things I'm going to get into this video. So, first of all, before we preview this, we got to say that the Jaguars right now have $25.7 million of available cap before different cap casualties. Look, the Jaguars haven't had a single cap casualty or even like rumors of cap casualties. I've been kind of refreshing Twitter all day today and haven't really seen anything like of substance. The only thing I really saw was that, you know, the Jaguars might move on from Foley Fatukasi, which was probably the easiest and most obvious roster cut that was going to happen. But outside of that, things have been pretty tight-lipped. The Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson, you know, they addressed the meeting and say, we want to keep everybody. Everybody is going to return as Jaguars. You know, the offensive line is fine. Defensive line is fine. We're good. You know, they're saying all this different stuff, but, you know, we know that's not true, and they're not really giving us much. So it's really hard to kind of see where their minds are at. So, yeah, $25.7 million of cap. That's 18th most in the NFL. So Jaguars are definitely not like cash strapped, while they're not like, they don't have, $70 million to spend. They're also not, under over the cap, whatever the negative amount is, where they really, really need to cut some players to, be able to, get in the right situation to be able to exist as an NFL team through the league year. So let's get into this, man. So tomorrow is the deadline for the franchise tag, and I'm very much expecting maybe during this video that some news breaks, but this is the first domino that all of us are anticipating. Look, I think the thing that's given is that Josh Allen will 100% be a Jaguar. Or I guess I should say 99% will be a Jaguar, because the Jaguars still do have Trent Baalke, and this guy is absolutely unpredictable, and it doesn't seem like he's the right guy to be leading this franchise, but I do digress. So he'll be back with the Jaguars in some kind of capacity, most likely franchise tag. I mean, as you get closer to this franchise tag window, the Jaguars have like it's 1 o'clock right now, so they have like 27 hours to negotiate a new deal, or else he's going to get franchise tagged. But if he does negotiate for a new deal, then you have options with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, by the day, we're hearing more and more about how robust his market's going to be. Teams are going to be coming after Calvin Ridley. Teams really, really want Calvin Ridley. So, and then, it's not surprising, because we kind of see the way the landscape of the NFL is. We look and we say, oh my gosh, look at all these, free agent wide receivers are going to be available. Let's go get Mike Evans. Well, Mike Evans signed a new deal today. Let's go get T. Higgins. Well, T. Higgins signed a franchise tag. And that's kind of how it goes with the NFL. Wide receivers really over the course of the last 10 years, 10, 15 years has turned into a premium position. I mean, back in the day, you would have said, quarterback, left tackle, edge rusher. Now it feels like, wide receiver one is just as important as any of those positions. So teams are really wanting that. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. Obviously, I don't think that the Jaguars will get a new deal done with Josh Allen. I think that he'll be franchise tagged. So with that said, what do you do with Calvin Ridley? Now, it's a weird situation with Calvin Ridley, definitely a unique one. Usually in the NFL, you have it where you either re-sign him or you let him walk, and then, nothing happens. Well, if the Jaguars re-sign him to a multi-year deal before like free agency begins, then all of a sudden you had to give up a second round pick. If you either franchise tag him, or if you give him a new deal after free agency begins, then it's only a third round pick that you're giving up. That's why, for me, if the Jaguars really wanted to keep Calvin Ridley, it would have been so much more advantageous to be able to re-sign a Josh Allen to a mega deal and, use that franchise tag on Calvin Ridley to do kind of what you want with him and kind of get some flexibility there. Now, I think I am honestly in the minority when it comes to what I would personally do with Calvin Ridley. I think that, like I said, with the very hot market, I think that the Jaguars tried to utilize Calvin Ridley in like the number one wide receiver role. And to be quite frank, whatever role the Jaguars foresaw Calvin Ridley having in 2023, I don't think that he really performed to what the Jaguars would have expected out of him. Now, granted, we handicap it because we say, look, he was healthy. He played all 17 games. He had over 1,000 yards. And when you look back on the season, as we reflect on the season, like, you're realizing how injured this Jaguars team was. I mean, all the wide receivers, Agnew, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, all these guys were hurt. Trevor Lawrence was very, very hurt. The whole entire offensive line was hurt. Even Anton Harrison, who played all 17 games, he sustained an injury in preseason, and that required him to get surgery after the season. I mean, everybody on the offense was not playing at 100%, and it was really only Calvin Ridley and, who else? Maybe Evan Ingram, I think, was healthy the whole year. It seemed like only those two guys were actually healthy. So in a lot of ways, we kind of give him the benefit of the doubt because of that. But I will say, I mean, I'm not really going to handicap him there. And like, I just don't think, I think that Calvin Ridley will be great with the right offense. Like right now, he's being heavily linked to the New York Jets And I think the Jets would be a really good fit because I think Garrett Wilson is that number one wide receiver. And I think that Calvin Ridley would be a great number two. I think right now the Jaguars have an excellent number two with Christian Kirk. I think he's tremendous. But I just don't think with what I saw that Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk really complement each other very well. And whatever role that they wanted to have with Calvin Ridley, he didn't really fill that. I mean, what the Jaguars need is they need that big outside boundary wide receiver that's big, tall, athletic, can take the top off the defense, can run, can catch that back shoulder fade in the end zone, can just be that threat. The Jaguars, with Calvin Ridley, I just don't think that he is what the Jaguars want with this offense. And when you compound on that, the Jaguars have a lot of money wrapped up in the pass catching room. You have Christian Kirk, who we all knew signed a big deal a few years ago. Evan Ingram just signed a new deal. You still have Zay Jones under contract. You don't have any youth there. Your only player on the wide receiver on the roster that was drafted was Parker Washington in like the 5th or 6th round of the 2023 NFL draft. You've really had no investment there. I mean, for me, I think that it's time for the Jaguars to finally invest in a receiver. There's a couple really good ones. I mean, there's the Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU that seems to be like he would be an A+ fit in this Jaguars offense. There's also Keon Coleman, a lot of Jaguars fans are familiar with because he's an FSU guy. And, he kind of fits that mold as well of a Jaguar receiver that, the kind of prototype receiver that we would need that will probably be hanging around there when the Jaguars pick at number 17. So, and with all that said, if you don't re-sign Christian Kirk, you keep the 2nd round pick. I mean, I don't think it can be understated how important that is. I know Trent Baalke will go to the media and say it's not important. It's important. Look, a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick, it's a big difference. It's very important. Okay. Maybe it's might not be as big of a gap between the 2nd and 1st round pick. The 2nd and 3rd round pick, they're day 2 picks. And I mean, maybe Trent Baalke doesn't appreciate day 2 picks. Maybe there's some truth to that. I mean, if you look at his last 2 seasons, Luke Fortner, Chad Muma, you had Tank Bigsby and Britton Strange, all guys that seem to be kind of misses or misfits or something, not getting as much out of it that we would want. So with my predictions, I think Josh Allen gets franchise tag, and I think that he'll sign a new deal after the draft at some point. When you look at the last couple of years, Cam Robinson in 2022 got franchise tagged. He signed a new deal right before the NFL draft in 2022. The same thing with Evan Ingram in 2023. He got the franchise tag. He signed a new deal in July. Okay. I think with Josh Allen, there's not a whole lot of negotiating to do. I mean, look, he's a premier player at a position of need. I mean, you only have 2 edge rushers on a team right now with Trayvon Walker and Yasir Abdullah. So it's something that the Jaguars are going to have to do. But I think you franchise tag him, and unfortunately, I think Ridley walks. And I think that the Jaguars find a younger receiver in the draft to kind of fit more of what would be better for the Jaguars offense. And I think they probably go bargain bin hunting, bring in a guy like Van Jefferson or a player like Josh Reynolds, something of that caliber where you're getting a middle tier wide receiver just to kind of plug a hole because you need wide receivers on the team. The Jaguars are kind of low on that. So that's just what I think. I know unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion, and many of my opinions are unpopular, and that's why I do YouTube, and that's why I podcast, okay, to get it out there, to have some fresh takes here. So my next free agency prediction is I think that the Jaguars signed 2 brand new starters on the offensive line. I think that with Cam Robinson having a $16 million cap hit, I do think he's gone. I know a lot of people think that they're leaning toward maybe keeping him. If I'm GM Trent Baalke and I'm looking at this, taking out all the rumors, I think Walker Little, when healthy, is a better left tackle. And I think that he's coming at a lot cheaper of a price because you can take that $16 million and do a lot of things with it. And quite frankly, I love Cam Robinson. I love his attitude, but I don't want to give all that much money to a left tackle that might be slightly above average and a guy that's always injured. I mean, he has been very, very injured the last few years. And I can't remember last time he actually played a full season. So, that's a very, very big thing with him. So, and then, when it comes to left guard, Ezra Cleveland, I think they're leaning toward maybe wanting to, re-sign him back. So we'll see on that. I think center Luke Fortner, I think they're going to bring in a center and call it competition for Luke Fortner, but I think they're going to disguise it as competition because, look, if we're being real, Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson are talking so highly of Luke Fortner, but anybody who understands football knows the guy is awful, and he was probably the worst starter on the offense and defense for the Jaguars last year. They absolutely cannot have him starting game 1 of 2024, okay? So you're going to need a new starter there. I think right guard Brandon Sheriff, I think he's going to get cut. And look, the story of Brandon Sheriff is when he's healthy, he's pretty good. But I feel like Brandon Sheriff, just the story of his whole entire career is that he's a tough dude. He plays through injuries. But the issue is, like, he is always just toughing it through an injury where he's never playing at 100%. And he's only getting older. And he's just, his whole entire career, he's just not healthy. And I think you can do a little bit better there. And right tackle Anton Harrison, he's fantastic. He'll obviously be back. So I do think that at the end of the day, you got to figure out what is best for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, you have a quarterback that is very durable, but the team fooled on him last year. The Jaguars went 1-5 to finish 2023, spiraled out of the playoffs after starting 8-3, and you had your star quarterback Trevor Lawrence suffer 3 different injuries. Okay, and it was because the offensive line couldn't stop a nosebleed. Okay, so with this offseason, you got to say, how can I do right by Trevor Lawrence? I'm going to put the ego aside. I know if I'm Trent Baalke, I drafted Luke Fortner in the 3rd round. Whatever. Chalk it up for a loss. Get somebody to replace him. I do think that this could be a position that the Jaguars swing at. I'm looking at maybe offensive guard Robert Hunt. Could be a guy that the Jaguars really make a swing for. It's rumored that the Jaguars might not do a lot on the offensive line, but I just refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe that you could watch the tape of 2023 and the way they finished, that they can't think that they can't do any better. Okay, they can't just roll back with what they got, because in this league, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, and you absolutely need to get better on the offensive line, because not only do you need a pass block, you need to be able to run too. The Jaguars just couldn't get any push. Etienne is a fantastic running back, but he couldn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? So the Jaguars just have to get nastier on the offensive line to be able to move people, establish dominance, and do all that good stuff. Now, my next free agency prediction is, like I said, I think that they make a big swing at guard, but I also think that they make a big swing at defensive line too. I think they're going to look to try to get a top of the market guy. Now, this could be through a trade or signing. Like, look, the Jaguars, I could definitely see signing like a Danielle Hunter, who they've been linked to so many times. And a lot of people, I brought this up a week or two ago. People are going to say, you don't need 3 edge rushers. No. Well, look, if you bring in a Danielle Hunter, with this 4-3 scheme that Ryan Nielsen is going to be running, you could very well start transitioning Trayvon Walker to kind of move inside a little bit more. And then maybe he can become like a Calais Campbell. You know what I mean? And then you have, everyone feels like that's his more natural position. Put him in a 3-point stance. And then you're going to have, Josh Allen on the outside. And, you bring in Danielle Hunter too. That's a nasty, nasty 3rd down unit. It's a nasty 3rd down unit. I could also see, maybe bringing in a Leonard Williams on the interior, because the Jaguars need some interior help. Bryce Huff, Zadarius Smith. I think that the Jaguars need to get one of these big fish. Outside, this is, of course, goes without saying, Josh Allen also needs to be under a long-term contract. And just quite frankly, we all know that last year the pass rush just was not good enough. They need another edge rusher. They need interior help too. Josh Allen last year, incredible year, 17.5 sacks. Trayvon Walker got himself 10 sacks. But the 3rd leading rusher was Roy Robertson Harris with 3.5 sacks. The backup edge rushers on this team combined for 3 sacks. Okay. So you got to, and this is a league where, the Jaguars were 1 win away from winning the AFC South. Okay. They were 1 big play away in any of these games from turning the game over. You got the extra win. Your AFC South champions back to back. Maybe you get bounced week 1 against the first wild card round of the playoffs. But hey, at least you got back-to-back AFC South crowns instead of, folding the way that you did and giving the division to a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. Okay. This division is no longer the Jaguars, because when everybody was begging for another edge rusher, Trent Baalke just had too much pride, too much pride to really do anything. So, with all that said, the defensive line got gashed in the run game too, which was unfamiliar. So yeah, if the name of the game really for me, as you can tell in this video, and really me all offseason, man, fortify the trenches. Like, as cute as we get with different offensive schemes and what kind of, are we going to be playing press man? Are we going to be playing zone? It all starts in the trenches, man. If your offensive line can't block anybody, you're done for. Your star quarterback is going to suffer 3 different injuries in the month of December. If your defensive line can't hold up against anybody, then you're not going to be able to get off the field on 3rd down, and the opponent's going to have 6-7 minute touchdown drives, and that's not the way football works. Okay, you got to get tougher in the trenches to be able to flourish on all different other units. Okay, so that's a big thing there. So like I said, trenches, and I think that the Jaguars, like I said, I think that when it comes to wide receiver, I know the Jaguars, like Mike Evans signed a new deal today, and the Jaguars were actually linked to maybe want to get a Mike Evans. I do think that I just feel like the Jaguars probably bring in like average wide receiver help. When you look at the roster, Jamal Agnew and Ridley, in my eyes, are probably gone. Zay Jones, I feel, will probably be. He's potentially a cap casualty. Okay, nothing's for sure with him, but he could be a cap casualty if they want to save some money. So like I said, maybe they go after a Noah Brown, Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds. A guy I would look out for is potentially like a Gabe Davis. I think he kind of fits the type of wide receiver the Jaguars need. Big body guy, boundary guy. I feel like probably had a lot of untapped potential over there for the Buffalo Bills, and he's definitely going to hit free agency. So, I think that as much as I like Calvin Ridley, and, this isn't a knock against Calvin Ridley, I just don't know if Calvin Ridley is the right fit for this offense. And, maybe you are able to bring in like a Gabe Davis or something. But, if you're making a splash move for a guy like, Robert Hunt at guard, or, name your defensive lineman, Danielle Hunter, Leonard Williams, Zadarius Smith, you probably won't be able to afford a guy like Gabe Davis. And, like I said earlier, the Jaguars have a lot of money in that position, and they need to kind of start drafting. So we will see on that. And another position to maybe look at is cornerback. Cornerback is extremely hard for me to predict because, first of all, like Ryan Nielsen is a guy that when he signed on as a defense coordinator to Jags, we all know he has full autonomy of the Jaguars defense. And, we're all saying, like, okay, press man, he's a press man guy. That's what he runs. He's a press man guy. And I don't know how much of that is really, because in the NFL these days, like you don't fit your personnel to your scheme. You fit your scheme to the personnel. Okay. And if your cornerbacks are much, much better at zone, you're going to be running a zone. So how much is that really in his defensive philosophy? We'll just have to see, because right now you have, and when you look at the roster right now you have Darius Williams, 1 year left on his deal. Tyson Campbell, 1 year left on his rookie deal. So, I imagine at least one of those guys won't be on the Jaguars in 2025. So you don't really have a lot of investment there. You don't really have a nickel cornerback. Some people will mention Antonio Johnson, but, I think he's probably leaning toward him probably being starting safety, because I do think that the Jaguars will move on from Rayshon Jenkins, and he's going to take over. The Antonio Johnson will take over for him. He was the 5th round, I think a 4th or 5th round draft pick from Texas A&M. So he's going to take over as the starting strong safety for the Jaguars. And, it leaves a hole. I mean, if you're going to be playing press man, Trey Herndon can't be starting next year because he's just not fast enough to keep up with these guys. So, what will they do at cornerback? Is that a unit that they're going to want to spend some money on? I will say, Trent Baalke, he wanted to kind of act all smart, like, oh, we don't need edge rushers. Our offensive line is good. We have a lot of faith in Luke Fortner. We love Luke Fortner. We love everything about this team. He didn't have the best ringing endorsement of the cornerback unit. I mean, when I was listening to his press conference, it was like he was screaming out, "We're drafting cornerback in the first round." And a lot of mock drafts have the Jaguars going for cornerback in the first round. So that's definitely a unit that the Jaguars will need improvement at. But will they improve there through free agency? Will they look at the draft? I do like some of the talent there. Like, I like Darius Williams. I like Tyson Campbell, but, I imagine Darius Williams probably won't be on a team in 2025. I did like what I saw of Monteric Brown in 2023 while he was filling in for Tyson Campbell. And I think that Tyson Campbell, look, he had a rough year after the injury, but I don't think that was him. I mean, we saw a completely. I don't think all of a sudden he got injured and then he was a terrible football player. I just don't believe in that. I just thought, like I said, with the offense, as we look back, there was just so many players. We didn't suffer a lot of injury when it comes to guys getting hurt and out for the year. We're just suffering with a lot of guys just like hobbled and pushing through it. I mean, we mentioned the offense with Trevor Lawrence, the whole entire offensive line, all the wide receivers except for Calvin Ridley, defensive wise too. I mean, Devon Hamilton was looking like he was going to have a monster year. And then all of a sudden he got this weird back injury and he was weak all of a sudden. We saw the same thing with Tyson Campbell. And then, even Andre Sisco got hurt as well. So we were hobbled. I don't think the Tyson Campbell that we saw last year was really him. So with all that said, these are some of my predictions for Jaguars free agency. I guess to wrap things up, I just think that it's going to be trenches. I'm going to go through Twitter real quick to see, because I feel like news is going to break any moment now about what the Jaguars do at with the franchise tag. So let me do one last refresh. Not seeing anything. So with that said, I'll end this one here.